Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. I'm here with Kathy and we're going to be talking about how to use humour and not comedy in the workplace. The differences between humour and comedy and because I think some people get it mixed up. And
Yeah.
Anyway, Kathy, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can go ahead and find me on LinkedIn at Kathy Klotz-Guest, no hyphen, just Kathy Klotz-Guest. You can find me at keepingithuman.com, all that stuff. Yeah.
So you are a very rare second appearance on my podcast. It's a very rare thing.
I made it.
Yeah. So and last time you were on, we talked about improv
Yeah.
and using improv in business in
Mhm.
terms of, as we did you go to a meeting and you put forward an idea and everybody said yes but, rather than using improv techniques, which is where you say yes and, which
Mhm.
which is a great thing that everybody can use. But there is a lot of talk quite often on LinkedIn about using, we should be more business to business can be very boring.
Yes.
So how can we amp it up a bit? And sometimes I think people say what we need to be doing is we need to be using comedy.
Mhm.
And what we do is that so what is it? What start explain to us, how can we use humor or comedy in what we're doing?
Yeah, it's a big question because it's all about framing. So comedy is, we're trying to make people laugh, we're trying to be funny. Now, it's okay to use principles of comedy. The main difference is that in business, we're not trying to be comedians. We're not trying to be comedians, and that's a high bar. That's even a high bar for comedians to always be on. That's a high bar, and nobody wants to be around people that are always on. It's annoying. Show me a person who's always on, and I will show you a person who's insufferable. So you don't want that. So the difference really is that comedy principles in business are really about better outcomes. So it's less about trying to be funny and more about being self-aware, having emotional intelligence, being able to read a room, being able to infuse connection when we speak so that we're really being heard. It's about real tools of communication and creativity. So when we say, take those comedy principles, yes, and apply them in ways that make sense for business. So it's a lot less about being funny. Now, being funny is great, but you can be a really horrifyingly bad leader and be funny, and that's not what moves the needle. So we're really talking about all the really great, juicy things about what humor can be, which is connection and humanity and really making people feel safe and seen and heard. And how do we use that in business versus I'm going to be the funny person at a mic, which has value in some ways. But if we're making it about us and how funny we are missing the point of humor, which is two-way connection. And
Yeah,
so
and
that's
I
the
think that
difference.
I
Yeah.
think for all of us, isn't it, that comedy is very personal to us.
Yes.
We all think things that different things are funny,
Mhm.
because we have different experiences and frames of references and
Yeah.
stuff. And I've seen people try and be funny in meetings, and it's cringeworthy.
There's nothing worse. Be like, watching Sheila from accounting. You're like, she never been funny a day in her life. Who was that person? What happened to her? Oh my God, is she okay? Yeah, no, it's not good. And I think the difference, Tim, is subtle, but I think when we think with humor, humor is so much more expansive. It's not about comedy or jokes. Humor is about really connecting on universally human things. And that's a bigger, easier, I think, more realistic and more important, I think, practical application for people. Yeah.
So it's not about jokes. So it's not about um,
No,
telling dad jokes or something like that. This is more about connection and communication.
correct. It really is. And it's look, if you're great at jokes, do them, but not everybody is. And it's a very dedicated craft. I happen to be one of those weird people that likes that craft and does that craft,
Mm.
but I always know what stage I'm on. Am I on a comedy stage or am I on a business stage? And that's different. It's really different. So I say, again, reminder, humor is bigger than jokes. Humor is about an attitude of playfulness and levity and not taking ourselves so seriously all the time. And that's the difference.
Yeah. So, what is it that we need to do so how do we kind of flip this?
Mhm.
How do we take humor to be center stage rather than, because for me I have a very dry
Yeah.
British sense of humor, it's very Monty Python,
Yeah.
and for a lot of people they just don't get it. So
Yeah.
I just don't do it. I don't do humor at all.
You probably do, because I've seen you be fun and playful, and that's humor. Um, Again, I think the idea that humor means being on or being jokes or trying to be funny, it's not that. Humor is not taking yourself so seriously. Can you laugh at yourself if you make a mistake? Can you own it? Can you be realistic? Can you be self-aware?
Well,
Humor,
it's a bit like today. So
yeah,
you sent me an email yesterday, and I replied, but it went to spam.
yeah.
So you responded to me saying your email went to spam, and I basically responded saying it deserved to be there.
See, it all comes back to Monty Python. Spam, spam.
It
It
was so
does.
it's so in a way, that was like that for me was like humor. It was,
Correct. It was in
and
the
it was about
moment.
myself,
Yes, but it
and I
was in
can do
the
that.
yes, it was in the moment and you were being real in the moment, and that's beautiful because it was responding to what was true in the moment versus coming back with a bunch of jokes,
Hmm.
right? You were really showing up human and hearing what was being said and responding in the moment, which is why the difference between trying to be funny, I think, can really ruin the honest connection. And humor requires us to be real, read a room, be in that moment, that we're so in tune with connecting with people in that moment, and versus trying to crowbar, what we call in comedy, crowbar a joke, which may not really fit the moment. And so that's really the difference. And I think that if we just allow ourselves to breathe and be human and playful and whatever that is, we're going to land on the right side of that versus trying to be funny. And the difference is, if people come to me, and I've had people come to me and say, "Can you help me be funny?" And I'm like, "Well, funnier, but I can't make you be funny." But why do you want to be funny? And that's really the question. Again, funny's great. It has its place. Not gonna lie, it's fun sometimes. But in business, if I'm not connecting and I'm making it about me, then I question why we want that in the first place. Are we doing it for the right reasons? And if we're in a state of humor and play, we're being playful in that moment. And that is such a unplanned, not jokes, it's being real and showing up in the moment. And I believe every human has the capacity to do that better.
So how can we bring humor into what we're doing? What are the tips that we need to do, and what are the mistakes that we make?
So there's a lot of layers of humor, right? I think we talk about humor and it's a big catch-all category. It's a big catch-all because, look, you know, if I'm working with a marketing team, they maybe want to do humor in a campaign. Well, okay, that's different. Sometimes people want to be better speakers and they want to use humor. So maybe we work on storytelling with humor. That's different. And most people really just want to be present in the moment. And I would argue that that level of humor is really, that's where improv tools shine, because improv teaches us to be present in the moment. And I think one of the things we get wrong is we think humor is about forcing funny. It's not. Humor is about being real. It's humor is truth. That's one of the things I think we get wrong. Humor is truth, and it's a truth that's recognized. So honestly, if I give my truth, but you don't recognize it to be true, it may not work. However, if I'm in the moment and I say something because I feel awkward and you recognize the truth because you feel awkward, we're connected because I'm saying the truth that people are feeling in the moment. So what we get wrong is a very narrow definition of humor as, jokes and being in comedy. And I think a true expansive definition is showing up and being willing to be present in the moment. And so how do I respond in any moment? And it's truth recognized, it's also being real. So what I mean by that is, and we talked about this last time, Tim, it's I can't tell you how many times there is an opportunity for just saying what people are thinking, but in a way that owns it. So it's not about here's what you feel, it's here's how I feel. I have had to have awkward conversations as a leader in tech many, many, many times. I cannot own how other people feel. If I start with how I feel, like, hey, I look, before we have this really tough conversation, can I get you anything? Some coffee, some water, a head start for the exits. I'll be right behind you. If I just acknowledge that awkwardness with humor, now I've created connection because that other person's probably feeling the exact same way.
Yeah.
But I cannot say how they feel. I can only own me. Now they have permission to reciprocate and go, yeah, I feel the same way.
So what about,
yeah,
one of the things that often is used, I think is still used, though I think it's going out of fashion quite a lot now because of the, I'm building up so sarcasm.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I've written a lot about sarcasm, and you can go to, I'm going to say you can go to Humour Inc., which is my newsletter on LinkedIn. plug.
You might as well get a plug in, Kathy.
plug it. Humour Inc., which is my newsletter on LinkedIn. Look, sarcasm has its place, but here's the downside of sarcasm is that our goal as leaders is to build connection and safety and trust. And sarcasm undermines that goal. I'm going to say it again. Can I be sarcastic with my friends in private? Yeah, go to town. Go to town on that. However, my job as a leader is to build a layer of trust and connection with everybody on my team. So if I'm being sarcastic, and that is my go-to response, imagine team members feeling like, I'm not going to go to her, because if I go to her with a serious issue, that's exactly how she's going to respond. No, thank you. So sarcasm as a go-to response, folks, I'm sorry to say it, it might be fun in the moment. It erodes trust. So if sarcasm is once in a great while, great. But less is more. Less is so much more with sarcasm. Really be careful. Really. And that's the one thing that a lot of sarcastic people think they're really funny. They think they're funny. But if you asked everybody else around them all day long, they'd be like, I am so over that shiz. I don't want to hear anymore.
I think that the number one thing that I get from doing these conversations with people is that in work, what we need is psychological safety.
Yes.
And for leaders and for individual contributors to be self-aware. They're the two things that always crop up.
Always.
And as a leader, we need to be building this culture of psychological safety to enable you to speak up, regardless of who you are or where you come from. And so, as you say, this is about connection and communication, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. So absolutely. Look, at the end of the day, our job as leaders is to make people feel safe and seen so they can do their jobs. I'm not saying coddle everybody. That's not it, because it may be uncomfortable having tough conversations, but nobody should feel unsafe. Those are two different things, right? Safety and comfort, not the same thing. I feel uncomfortable when I was in tech full time having to have tough conversations. I, however, knew that safety was my goal and trust was my goal. So to that end, if I'm flippant or sarcastic with people's feelings, I'm going to erode trust very quickly, and it is not worth it. It is not worth it. So think long and hard about your sarcasm with your friends by the water cooler is a very different proposition. Yeah.
So what is it that we can do more of in terms of connecting? Can you give us some more examples? I love your example of the tea, coffee, or running to the exits.
Yeah. So here's the thing about it. It really relies on self-awareness. It relies on approachability. It relies on psychological safety. It relies on an understanding of reading the room, First, it's self-awareness. Now, can I read everybody's emotions? Can I read the room? There are times where it's just people are not in the mood, and that's okay. I think what we have to do as leaders is understand, you know, what are those timing is everything. Timing is everything in comedy, and also as a leader using humor. And by timing I don't necessarily mean the timing of a joke. I mean, is it the read the room? Are people feeling it? If you're laying off people, might not be the time to, like, let's bust out a fun activity. That may not be the time, but it might be if people are feeling open to healing. And that's the job of a leader, is you always have to be able to read the room. And if you get it wrong, it's okay. Just apologize. I know this is shocking to hear. You're going to get it wrong sometimes. Most people won't get it wrong. But on the rare, rare chance that you do, it's okay to just say sorry. Hey, sorry. So I think with humor, I want people to understand that it starts with truth, your truth, not somebody else's truth. It starts with reading the room. It starts with universal things. So humor isn't about, own how you feel or own universal things. I can talk about parenting. I can talk about work from home. I can talk about constant change. I can talk about the fifth reorg. Like, I've had 10 bosses, and it's like it's Survivor, but like of bosses. And like, I can outlast every boss. Like, you can talk about those commonalities because that is ripe for a universal human laughter moment. The danger zone to avoid, everybody, is when you start trying to comment on somebody else's experience. That's where people get into trouble. I'll say it again. If you stay on the right side of owning a universal experience or your own experience, you're safe. And it's the difference between, am I lifting people up and celebrating our common humanity? Or does my joke come at the expense of a group of people or a person? That's a big red light. So here's the thing. It really comes down to this. Embrace your own imperfections and embrace your common humanity. Those are perfect areas that your team will respond to. And it's we overcomplicate it because we think, well, I have to have a joke. No, you don't. And most people are really bad joke tellers. It's okay. You don't have to. There's storytelling. There's, making it a check-in moment at every meeting. Let's just have some lighthearted fun. Like, what's fun? Make it group oriented so that everybody participates and it's voluntary. It's optional. It's not like, funny on command or humor on command.
We will have fun.
Exactly. No mandates. No mandates.
We will have fun.
No fun by KPI.
Yeah.
We are not doing, we will have fun right now. Here's my laser pointer. And I know it will be fun because, damn it, it's in our charter. It's our mission statement. No. Voluntary. So the more you start to cultivate a culture like that, Tim, where people can feel free to participate and do what's fun for them and respect everybody, and make it lighthearted, the more you're going to cultivate that kind of a team or a culture. Yeah.
I think it's about, as you say, it's got to come from myself.
Yeah.
Because it's not right or fair for me to be judgmental or try and second guess.
Nope.
To use about somebody else.
Nope. That's where people get into trouble. That is, and there's always that one person in the office or multiple people. There's always that one person that's like, well, I guess I can't joke about anything. It's like, no, the problem is you speak for other people and you have no license to do that. That's your problem. And so it's about ownership. It's about owning as a self-aware leader that it is self-referential. So when you give yourself permission to say, I feel awkward, or am I the only one who feels awkward? You're owning how you feel and you're never making it about somebody else. And there's a big, big difference. And that's what kind of reading the room and giving permission for people to breathe. Yeah, that's what it is.
So if I'm going to tell a joke.
Yeah.
So I remember doing a presentation course.
Yeah.
And the person doing the course said, always tell a joke at the beginning of the presentation.
Mm-mm.
And I did, and it was very uncomfortable, and I didn't ever do it again.
Yeah, well, they were wrong.
and I decided that they were wrong.
Yeah, they were wrong.
So
they were wrong.
If we're going to tell jokes, what do we need to do?
Okay, if you're going to tell a joke, again, the same rules apply. If you're going to tell a joke, jokes are referential or about how you feel in the moment. How you feel in the moment. So, if I tell a joke about being a woman in tech, I'm going to make it about me. I'm going to say, because there's nothing that, people in tech love more than a smart, funny woman leader. No, no, no. It's like, or I'm going to say something about, my joke that I use all the time when I talk to tech audiences, and even, everybody laughs. It's like, tech is still very male dominated. And the last company that I worked for had this fun little tradition where all the groups got names. The IT guys were the it bros. The accountants were the dough bros. I got excited because they came up with a name for the women in my division, Kathy and Brenda. And like everyone laughs because I'm telling you how I felt about being in that space. And that is the difference. It's self-referential. Or you could just say, acknowledge the awkwardness in the room. Or you can say, I'm the last speaker between you and the wine bar. So I understand this is a life or death decision here. And I hope you stay, acknowledge what people are feeling. So the biggest jokes you can get, the biggest laughs are a self-aware joke. You're the last speaker of the day, the first speaker of the day. You forgot your slides. Something was wrong.
You're after lunch.
Exactly. Call out the issue at hand, the elephant in the room. That's going to get a big laugh. But again, you never, never, ever have to start off a presentation with a joke. If you're here's the thing, jokes have to be rehearsed, practiced, and you have to have a facility with jokes or an awareness I mean, look, I've been doing jokes. I've been doing comedy for many, many years. I sort of I have a gut feel from practice of what will work and what won't. Not everybody does. If you have it, great, do it. But if you're not a great joke teller, please don't do that to yourself and think that you have to. You can tell a story. You can ask a question. You can be, airline lost my luggage once, and I had to wear sweats to a big presentation. They lost my luggage. I had no clean clothes, right? So I just showed up and I was like, anybody else have airline lose their luggage? Nope, just me today. Okay, acknowledge it. And the audience will laugh at the pure honesty. So sometimes it's just a statement or a question or call the elephant out in the room if there's something awkward. And now everybody can move on because you've acknowledged it. They laughed. Now you have their attention and you can move on. But never put that pressure on yourself that you have to have a joke. No.
Kathy, thank you so much for coming on again. Yeah. Remind people where they can get hold of you.
You can get a hold of me at lots of different places. You can reach me on LinkedIn. You can reach me on Instagram. You can go to keepingithuman.com. All those many, many good places.
Do you have did you say you had a newsletter or a blog or something that you were?
I do have a newsletter on LinkedIn. Now I have a blog on Keeping It Human, but I also have a newsletter, a LinkedIn newsletter called Humour Inc. And it's really about all the practical ways that we can think about humor in business. And it's so much more than just being funny in a presentation or a campaign. It's so much more than that. It is emotional intelligence and it is connection. And we can do that.
And I read the last one that you did, and it was very good. So thank you.
Thank you. And you can catch me on my podcast. My podcast, Seriously Funny, on Spotify. You can listen to my podcast, Seriously Funny. There you go. See, you're going to regret asking that question, Tim.
Kathy, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.